3D models are great for visualizing design because they are realistic and versatile, but they do require a lot of time to set up, especially if there are surrounding context buildings which we need to show. And in the early stages of design, this time can actually be spent better on design itself rather than 3D modeling. Luckily, there is another way to visualize architectural design without having to spend time making 3D models. Hey guys, my name is Alex and I share digital drawing tips and techniques to help architects to draw with confidence. And in this video, I'll share with you a workflow that I sometimes use for my job, where there is a potential site available for the building that needs to undergo a feasibility study before the project can even begin. So we'll usually start with assessing the available floor area, test fit the number of floors we can fit, and how tall we can build. We would also look at the surrounding context in this process. During this process, it may be useful to see how building massing fits and feels in the site and the surrounding context itself. So for that, I'll usually sketch over the Google Earth screenshot, which is much faster than 3D modeling. The hand drawing aesthetic will also look much more appealing compared to the early stage 3D modeling, which usually feels quite bland. And if any changes are required, these can be accommodated fairly quickly as well. So I've broken down this video into 3 parts: the design, tracing, and shading. For the first part, I would simply locate the site on Google Earth, turn off the labels and import the underlay into the Procreate and start tracing over, a bit like I would in the real world with the tracing paper. I would then establish the desired parameters of the building, like the height. For example, if we were to take down this building, we would probably go much higher than it is currently shown, since that's what the developers usually like. So currently we have 6 floors, but I reckon we can go to 8 or 9 in this location. We would have to allow for the setbacks to the front of the street in line with the height of the adjacent buildings. Similarly, the volume to the rear would also be set back in height to not obstruct daylight to surrounding existing buildings. I've also added fenestration or subdivision to the front of the building. The expression of columns help with the establishing building grid, and they also help with the sense of scale and understanding that this is an office typology, whereas the narrow window slots to the volume at the rear signal a more of a civic/seminar assembly or theater type of space. So for the tracing part, we can use the first design pass layer that we've created as a basis for the actual drawing. I'll start with drawing the proposed building massing first on a separate layer so that I can make alteration to the proposal later or to do options appraisals if required. I made the standard fineliner pens that I use in my drawings, so leave a comment below if you're interested in what brushes I use and I will make sure to share them with you. Also, if you like this video so far, make sure that you subscribe for more upcoming videos. I do aim to post at least one video a week every single week. Now, the golden rule for the architectural illustration is to show as little as possible to convey the story of the building. The medium fineliner brush that I use inside the Procreate limits how much detail I can show, and it's quite useful constraint to have. And I will only use finer size pen to show the secondary textures like paving or to show cladding or the texture of the building. And I'll usually start drawing context at the same time as the main building. This is so that I can get the level of detail right. Ideally, I want less detail on the existing building for contrast and to direct viewers' attention to the main building instead of looking at the existing ones. The buildings further away will get even less detail, usually just a notional outline for massing. There's also a natural point where adding more detail won't necessarily convey more information, so for time-saving purposes, it's best to gradually build the whole picture rather than doing one small bit after another. And I sometimes finish with the outline around the building with a thicker pen just to make it distinct from the surroundings. I'll put this outline on the background layer so that I can turn it off and on as necessary. After I'm reasonably happy with the underlay drawing, I'll add color and shading. I use my marker pen to do this, and I'll start with the larger areas and then gradually will narrow down to smaller details. I'm not a fan of using too many colors as they can distract from the massing of the building. Less is more when it comes to colors in my opinion. Colors can also be used on the main building, once again to contrast the proposed against the existing context, so the main building can be in slightly different shade. I will normally distinguish between the types of materials on the main building like the cladding, paving, planting and windows. I typically try to somewhat replicate the main tones of the buildings around, but I will mute them down as as this results in a nicer drawing aesthetic. Drawings are more forgiving when it comes to color, because unlike 3Ds, it is understood that they are indicative and not fully realistic representations, so we don't need to replicate colors exactly. As I go through the drawing, there will be some corrections and additions to the base drawing, because there might be elements or details that I missed, and because adding color will make the drawing appear and feel slightly differently compared to black and white base layer. So sometimes changes to the base layer are needed, and at this point it's also helpful to add shadows to make the drawing less flat and to convey that the buildings have volume. If you enjoyed this video, check out some other videos on this channel. These are designed specifically to help architects to draw with confidence. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.